A woman walks into a gala in Los Angeles, Black History Month, a fundraiser for the 15% Pledge, an organization advocating for retailers to dedicate 15% of shelf space for Black owned businesses. She wears a custom gown by a Black designer. She supports a founder she has publicly collaborated with. She smiles, she speaks, she sits at the front table. That is the event. Now, watch the transformation. In the American magazines, the coverage reads like fashion journalism: the cut of the gown, the silhouette, the designer, the mood, a note that she attended without her husband, a logistical detail, nothing more. Across the Atlantic, something changes. Not quite sure what happens, but it's like broken telephone almost. The gown becomes provincial. Hmm. The fabric becomes suspect. The train becomes a metaphor. The cost is converted into pounds and dollars. A stylist who does not work with her is invited to weigh in. A flyer without her name becomes headline material. Same woman, same event, two different instincts. Now, let's talk about that word, solo. 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 Every time Meghan appears at an event without Prince Harry, the word appears as though it has discovered a new vocation in life. Duchess goes solo. Meghan alone again. You can almost hear the violins turning. But here is the awkward fact: senior royals routinely attend engagements alone. Actually, a lot of husband and wives, partners, do attend events, social gathering, routinely alone. Now, Prince William travels alone. Catherine, as far as we know, is still his wife, conducts solo engagements whenever she can. When William travels alone, it is leadership. When Catherine appears alone, it is duty. When Meghan appears alone, well, oof, it's a different narrative. That difference is not imagination, it is repetition. Now let's address the wardrobe theology. Catherine's gowns are routinely described as flawless, elegant, impeccable. The tone is reverential, as if each hemline were a diplomatic achievement. Do you remember the time she took her hair and put it into a ponytail and it was frontline news about how great and talented the time she climbed a ladder and climbed back down? The achievement. Wow. Are her clothing expensive? Of course. Couture, bespoke tailoring, pieces from the royal collection. These are not clearance rack affair, my friends. But notice what rarely appears. The cost is seldom foregrounded as moral commentary. The number is not weaponized. The currency is not paraded. When Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, well, with her price often arrives like a footnote that swallowed the headline. Why that is? Well, because numbers can be neutral or they can be very suggestive. The buggers. And suggestion, you see, repeated often enough, becomes character. Now, what about that other prince? Billy. Oh, sorry, William. Recently, William traveled to Saudi Arabia for official engagements. Around the same period, renewed public attention surfaced around Prince Andrew's long documented association with Jeffrey Epstein. Andrew ties to Epstein have been examined in court documents and reported for years now. That reputational shadow does not evaporate because the calendar advances. Now, here is the factual overlap. DP, that's very interesting initials. DP World is a founding partner of the Earthshot Prize, Prince William's environmental initiative. The CEO of DP World, Sultan Ahmed bin Salamim, has been referenced in unsealed U.S. court materials involving Epstein correspondence. Wasn't there something about enjoying a video with someone being tortured or a torture video or something like that, allegedly? I think. I mean, this is not an accusation. There is no evidence of wrongdoing on Prince William's behalf, or that we can see or that we know of. But when donor networks intersect with names appearing in legal documents tied to one of the most notorious criminal cases of the century, that is complex optics. Can you imagine if this was Prince Harry and Meghan Sussex? My gosh, I can't even fathom. And optics are usually the press's favorite sport. Yet notice the temperature difference. A velvet train on a dress at a fundraiser is dissected like statecraft. Institutional optics involving global power players receive comparatively, what is the word I'm looking for? Softer framing, perhaps? If journalism can measure the price of satin down to the cent, it can measure reputational risk with equal enthusiasm. I think they can. They should. But here's another quiet truth. Media ownership circles are very, very small. Executives know each other. Editorial culture travels. When certain phrases become profitable, like solo or controversial or divisive, they spread. Not because of secret meetings or behind dark alleys or closed doors, or you get the picture, even though those do happen. But you see, this is because of incentives. Clicks reward tension, tension rewards framing, framing rewards repetition, and repetition builds narrative memory. If you hear something often enough, repeated over and over and over, like how much her earrings cost, how much her dress cost, how much her pinky ring cost, how much the flower in her hair cost, and it totals up to hundreds of thousands of pounds of or dollars, then you start to think, who does she think she is? Right? Because repetition builds narrative memory. Here is the question that matters, though. What carries greater civic weight? A duchess wearing a custom gown to support Black owned businesses? Or a monarchy still managing the fallout of a senior member's association with a convicted sex offender? Which story affects governance and public trust and international diplomacy? Which story affects hemlines? When aesthetic critique overwhelms structural scrutiny, something tilts. An audience notice that, not because they're partisan, but because most of them can count. Now, I didn't say all of them notice it, some do. So let's return to the woman entering the gala. She supports a black designer. She attends a fundraiser for equity. She leaves. The coverage tells you she is stiff. She thinks she's grand. She arrived alone. Expensive. But if you step back from the adjectives, what you see is something far more revealing. A press corps animated by satin, a monarchy insulated by silence, and a scale that seems to tip depending on who is standing on it. If journalism is going to count the dollars in a dress, it must also count the cost of selective scrutiny. Otherwise, it stops being oversight and becomes choreography.